Hey everyone, welcome back to the Functional Physique podcast. This is episode 4 with Kenneth Almond. Kenneth, thanks very much for coming on. If you want to just give
Absolutely.
the listeners a wee bit of background about yourself, especially obviously by just competing there in the Masters Nationals.
Yeah, so I've been on somewhat of a wayward bodybuilding journey since 2013. That was my very first competition. It was sort of born out of I don't know, a sense of not knowing what to do next. My life was a little bit in shambles, and I was going through a bit of a divorce. And I was walking through the gym one day, and one of the friends that I had there looked at me and said, "You ever thought about doing a bodybuilding competition?" And I was like, "Well, no." I was overweight, and she said, "Well, I'm going to. You should just do it with me." And at the time, I just wanted some sort of camaraderie or something to focus on aside from what was going on in my own life. And so she gave me her diet. So she was a bikini girl, and she gave me her diet. And I'm sitting here looking at the diet, and I'm like, this is so little food. It was made for a woman. But I decided I'm just gonna do it. I didn't know anything. And I remember there was this, and this is kind of a weird thing to bring up, but it was, I was looking at the diet, and there was this peanut butter that was like this like low calorie peanut butter. And I remember purchasing it. The only place you could get it was online. And when you got it, it was a different texture than like a normal peanut butter would be. But it was like the only thing that tasted good in the whole like plan. Like everything else was fish and broccoli and stuff. And so we're like 3 weeks into it, and the girl said, "I can't do it anymore. I'm binge eating on this peanut butter." So she just couldn't do it. So she quit. And for me, I thought, well, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to stay focused. But I know that I can't use this diet because it doesn't make any sense. So I ultimately hired an online coach that another person had in the gym. And it was about a year long that I dieted.
Yeah.
And the last 8 weeks of that show, I ate tilapia and broccoli for every single meal. It was terrible. Yeah, it was absolutely like one of the worst coaching experiences I think I could have ever imagined. I was doing 2 hours of cardio a day. I was training 6 days a week, but I won the show, and it kind of got this bug. I just decided that like I'm going to commit to this thing long term. I don't know what it's going to look like. And then about a year and a half in, I'd gone through my first bulk with another coach here locally in Raleigh, North Carolina. And he was really conservative when it came to PEDs and stuff like that. He was very concerned about my well being. I was 30 years old at the time. So I was starting later than most
Yep.
people started. And what happened ultimately, Sean, is I realized I was like really weird for being a bodybuilder. Like I'd go on a date and I couldn't have an alcoholic beverage, or I couldn't have pizza or whatever whatever was going on. I was always on a diet. And at the time, my heart really longed for companionship and getting back into a relationship. So I kind of laid it down. I told my coach, I was like, I'm just going to go be a normal person for a little while. And it never left. It's just lived inside of me for my whole life since I picked it up. And so I got back into it probably 3 years later, and that was around COVID. And I started working with John Meadows, and I had already been coaching part time since I started my bodybuilding journey. But around 2020, I realized I was coaching people that I couldn't fix. Like I couldn't get them lean enough. I couldn't. There were issues. And all I knew was macros, cardio, and training. So I started doing educational classes. I did Sam Miller's FNMS program. I started to educate myself from a functional health perspective. And so that naturally started to integrate into what I was doing with John Meadows, even though John was not sort of a functional guy. And 2 years into that relationship, he passed away. And then once he passed away, I had met Austin,
Yep.
and Austin was mentoring me at the time and still does. And I met him at the funeral. He didn't live too far away from John, and I just asked him, "Can you put me on your roster?" And It was about 2 months later we started. But, the driving factor behind working with Austin at the time wasn't necessarily bodybuilding. I wanted to continue bodybuilding, but my gut was really messed up. Like I couldn't eat without running to the bathroom. I couldn't urinate with like being scared of using the bathroom. So it was a major concern for me. And we were kind of in like an educational block within our mentorship where he was talking about gut health a lot. And so I was
Yep.
like, well, Austin, let's really focus on gut health for me. And so we did a GI map, and I had SIBO,
Yep.
and he put a plan together, and in about 8 weeks, actually in 4 weeks, I had dropped 14 pounds. It was like 14 pounds of inflammation. And what I noticed right off the bat was I was on TRT, and that was the lowest dose of testosterone that I had been on probably for 6 years. I was averaging between 500 milligrams and 750 milligrams a week, which is too high for a person that's just kind of cruising around. But I was on 150 milligrams of testosterone, and I was on this gut protocol, and I was going in to the gym, and my performance was just skyrocketing. Like for the first time, I felt like I was 24 years old and like had new tendons in my knees, and I didn't have any pain in my shoulders anymore. And it was really interesting. I just became an evangelist for gut health. like
Yeah.
like I'm talking to random people in Walmart if I'm picking up something at the grocery store or something. Like, do you know gut health like as your Lord and Savior? Like that's just kind of the way I was approaching it. It was such a life-changing experience, and Austin had kind of opened my eyes to this world of I just didn't know it existed. And so then naturally, I have all of these clients that I'm working with, and they all have a myriad of different issues. But the common denominator was gut health. So we started to do GI maps with my clients, and we started to work through those types of things. And I would see drastic improvements in their performance and their physique. Um, so what kind of brought me back around was I'm still kind of going through like a growth phase, and then would go through like a mini cut, but I wouldn't really take anything super serious. I was probably, if I was looking at it from a percentage perspective, I'd range anywhere between 2% and 85%. It just depended on the week. And honestly, my mental health was not great.
Yep.
I had, over the course of the last 6 or 7 years, I've been on a quest of healing that's been all consuming. It started with my gut health, and then from there, it rolled into my mental health. And then my mental health really, once that started to transform, then my physical health was sustained. So like I would have really good times where Austin and I would get in a good place from a physical perspective, and then all of a sudden we would shift into this not so great place, and it was always correlated with what was going on in my life or whatever the trauma was going on in my life. And so we had Austin and I had a really heart to heart probably in 2022 where he's like, man, I just really want you to be in a better place. And probably by the middle of 2023, I was better than I had been. And I had met my wife that year. Well, at the end of 2022. And so she and I both kind of collectively decided we're going to go down this healing journey together. Mental health, gut health. I had to fix her health. And through that, our relationship got really secure, and we went through some rocky times, but like we were able to stick it out and like work things through and get to a place that neither one of us had ever been relationally. And there was one component that we did, and you may not be aware of this, but we participated in psychedelic therapy. And so we did Ibogaine
Right.
at I guess it was the beginning of 2025 or 2024. I can't remember. And man, that was the most life-changing thing that we had ever done from a mental health perspective. And then what was crazy was that correlated to a mass. So if you don't know what Ibogaine is, it's a plant medicine that is used for PTSD, trauma, depression, and addiction. And a lot of the addiction that it's correlated to is like heroin, meth, things that people cannot get over usually. And so when those types of people do that treatment, after one treatment, 80% of them are cured. After two treatments, it's just like 98%. But for us, we just had things that we just didn't know were holding us back. So we did the treatment, and man, I woke up with a quiet brain for the first time in my life. I didn't have any anxiety. And I also dropped 5 pounds overnight. And I remember taking a picture in the room, and I was shredded, dude.
Yeah.
Like I was crazy looking because I had dropped all that inflammation driven by my own mental health. And we were in a mini cut anyway, but all that inflammation dropped. And it was like, I think Austin's comment on the post when I posted was, there's 40 years of inflammation that went down the drain.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when that happened, I knew that I wanted to get back on stage. I didn't know particularly when that time frame was going to be, but I communicated to Austin. I was like, hey, I'd like to go into a growth phase. I'd like to make some improvements, and I'm going to take it really seriously. And so we did about a year in a growth phase. And towards the end of the year, we had a car accident. And that car accident sort of derailed a lot of the natural rhythm of our life. So I probably entered into prep a little bit more fluffy than you would want to be, had a little bit more body fat than you would want. But we had agreed that prep was going to start in January of this year. So originally, Sean, the reason why was I wanted to show my son, who is going to be 11 in September, his name's Landon, how to do a hard thing. So he's a suburban kid, right? He doesn't live a hard life. There's not a lot that he goes without. We provide a lot for him. And I realized that through my childhood, what I ultimately did as an adult is what I saw my dad do, not what he told me to do, but it's what he did in my life, right? So good or bad, that behavior was going to transition into what I did as an older man. And so I just thought to myself, I'm gonna show Landon I can do something hard, and I can show him that I'm gonna die to my fleshly desires, like eating ice cream whenever I want or whatever, and I'm gonna treat it as sort of a spiritual discipline. And so that's where it started. And then about midway through the really my only expectation was to do a local show because it's been so long, man. Like, 13 years in between shows. And I think the first show I stepped on stage at like 172, and we're about midway through prep, and I'm sitting at about 185. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I haven't made any improvements in 13 years. This is insane. And what really was going on, so when we began the prep, like I said, we had just came off a tail end of a growth phase. So in that growth phase, my total androgen load per week was about 1200 milligrams, which it's not crazy, but like it was on the higher end. And then you're going to expect to go into prep, and that's kind of like not what you want to do. You want to be in a little bit better, a healthier spot. So what Austin and I agreed to do was we came down to TRT, we went into a cut, and we used peptides to augment insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial function, your overall ATP production. So, and that was my first experience really utilizing peptides the way that we had decided to do it. And man, it was crazy. The first time that I did SS31, I was like, this feels like the freaking limitless pill, dude.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I could taste colors and see smells. It was crazy how much it had changed the way that I felt. So then we introduced androgens about midway through. So when we introduced androgens, I'm sitting at like 185. There was probably 3 months there where my weight didn't change. It toggled probably 3 or 4 pounds. And what really was going on is my body was recompositioning, and I was actually improving going into the show. So if you look at that aggregately, what does that tell you if somebody's improving in prep? That means like prior to prep, they probably weren't as dialed in as they are in prep. And that's kind of common too. But I didn't want to be that guy. It just happened to
Yeah.
be that I was that guy. So I was having a conversation with my wife in the kitchen, and I was like, it's a lot of money to go to nationals. The registration fees were expensive. The travel was expensive. Heck, the registration fees for the local show were expensive. It cost me $550 to register for the local show. And dude, I'm going to the Olympia with an athlete this year. The tickets for the Olympia weren't that expensive, if that
Yeah,
gives you any
it's wild.
perspective.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just don't know. I want to see how the local show goes. And Donna, my wife, was like, I think you should do it. And I was like, well, I don't really want to lose. And then Landon piped up and he was like, well, what if you win? And it kind of shifted my brain. I was like, okay, I'm just looking at this through a negative lens. And then we went and walked because they kind of committed to doing steps with me as I was going through the show. Donna was like, this isn't about anything but your fear of losing, and you need to do it, and you need to be prepared to lose, and that's where you should grow. You wanted to do this hard thing and you thought it was going to be about food, but it's not about food. You've handled the food fine. It's your lack of willingness to put yourself out there and lose.
Yep.
And man, that's a big old swallow. I was like, okay, she's right, you know? And so I agreed that I would do it. But simultaneously that day, Austin emailed me and he was like, hey, we need to look at dates for nationals. You're looking really good. I think you're going to be competitive. You need to be prepared to go. And so I don't know how long you've known Austin, but he doesn't give compliments.
No, no, it doesn't.
So when he tells you that you're ready for something, he's not blowing sunshine up your butt, It's like, okay, well, this is kind of legitimate. And so I committed to going. And then the rest of the prep was really rough. Getting as lean as you are, and as I was, it's very difficult to fight the hunger pains. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but it transitioned from hunger in my stomach to a sharp pain in my brain. So it's like you're just walking around in pain, and you don't even, it's just, you're overall just in pain. And it's not even really that you can dictate that you're hungry, but it's almost like your feet hurt, your joints are dry, you're foggy in your brain, you're hangry. And when you're in that space as a man, you need to be able to control your emotions. And so there's that thing, right? I'm like, okay, I can see where this is going to get bad if I let it get bad. But luckily it didn't. I was able to control my emotions a lot of the time. Was I perfect? No, but like overall, I think the overall experience for me and my family was a net positive, even though it was miserable. So we get down to the nitty gritty, and I go to Pittsburgh, and Austin meets me there. He stayed with me in the Airbnb. And honestly, that was a great week. We were able to kind of talk shop. We're old friends now. It's like seeing one of your best friends, and you can kind of be in the same room with each other. You don't have to have a conversation. It was really comfortable, and the prep itself just went so smooth. There were no issues. He laid it out. We executed it exactly to the way that he laid it out. And the very first show was the classic physique division. And they brought us out. And by the end of prejudging, I was in the middle. And if you're familiar with bodybuilding, if you're in the middle at the end of prejudging, you're probably going to win.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking off stage completely flabbergasted because I wasn't expecting that. And Austin's looking at me like, what is going on, dude? But he doesn't want to like feed into it because we still don't know yet. And we go back to the hotel or the Airbnb, and we finish out the rest of the day and we honestly came back better. But the way that Masters Nationals goes is they decide right then and there at prejudging, and then you just show up and they hand out trophies essentially for the finals. Yep. There's really no more judging. So ultimately, I got third place. It was completely bizarre and out of the left field, and I went to get feedback from the judge, and they really didn't give me anything tangible to work with except for you need to grow your arms. And it's like me and Austin were like, yeah, we know. you know,
Yeah, yeah,
it's like the one weakness that we have. And
yep,
so we were disappointed because it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, but we were still happy with the outcome. And I wasn't depressed. I wasn't upset. It's just, it was a little disappointing to not know exactly why it panned out the way it did. Now, then the following day was the bodybuilding division. And again, we held, I think I woke up at like 192.6. I think I was on stage for classic at 193. So if you remember, middle of prep, I'm about 185. We got down to 180 at one point, and then the finished product was about 193 on stage, which is way heavier than I thought I was going to be. So if you think, okay, first time I was on stage is 172 and then 193, you know, we're 20 pounds heavier. I'm feeling a little bit better about the changes that I made over the last
yeah,
13 years. But you kind of sit there and you're like, I wonder how much we could have done if I was actually consistent.
yeah,
So go into the bodybuilding, there are two clear winners in my mind when we were backstage. They were bigger, they had great conditioning, and ultimately they got first and second place. There was another guy that got third, and he was big, but he kind of had a little bit of a weird shape. And
yep,
ultimately, the feedback was is I needed to get bigger. And but I will say, from a posing perspective and like a culture environment perspective, each division sort of has its own, almost like its own personality. So when I'm on the stage with the bodybuilders, I'm like, yeah, this is this is more my style than the classic guys.
yeah,
We get fourth, and I'm honestly fine with it. And we pack up and we go home. And so we're 3 weeks out of the last competition, and I woke up about 198 this morning. Still reversing out. I've had some off-plan meals. He's allowed me to have a couple a week. I haven't gone crazy. And I think there's a lot of maturity there. And I think like that takes over time, like to be a person who has a coach for a long time, but also sort of a seasoned competitor, and you're transitioning to, I want to go have ice cream because it makes me feel good, to I just want to improve the next time I step on stage. And honestly, that's where I'm at. So I'll check in tomorrow morning and we'll see kind of where things go. But the plan is to bring up my arms, bring up my glutes. My glutes were really difficult to see because the density there wasn't very much. So the plan is the next time I get shredded, you're going to be able to really see how shredded I am. And then hamstrings and some chest. And I think if we make those improvements, then we'll probably be a little bit better the next time we go in. And we're probably thinking a year and a half from now. You know, nothing too crazy unless I have some sort of freak off season and he's like, I
yeah,
think it's time to go. I always defer to him. So even as a coach, I have my clients, hopefully they want to defer to me, but I really try to call the shots and not let them think emotionally about the shows that they want to do. Usually puts you in a bad place if you're doing that. But that's the overall story, kind of my backstory, and then also my backstory, which is bodybuilding in Austin and the Masters Nationals prep. I've been yammering for 30 minutes, so you can ask me questions if you want.
no, I mean that's it's one hell of a journey that you've been on. Obviously, I've kind of just followed along the last sort of a part of your prep for when I started obviously seeing you on social media. I've been with Austin now, mentoring under him for, I want to say maybe 8 months to a year now.
Okay.
I've just recently moved into the group mentorship. I was doing one to ones with him for a long period of time. So now I've went into that again. You know, the guy's just a wealth of knowledge. The amount I've learned off him through functional health. Obviously, I've got IBD myself and a
Mm-hmm.
stoma and that. So, I mean, I was quite knowledgeable before him, but how much I've learned since obviously partnering up with him as well and learning has been night and day.
Yeah, it's interesting with Austin. I think when you look at him, he's unassuming, and he's a musclehead, right? It's like you don't
Yeah,
expect him to be as intelligent as he is. But the crazy thing, and I've been with him for 5 years now, he gets exponentially smarter because of his mentees. So when you have guys like you and I who are working with people or even having experiences of our own, and we have like a real drive towards wanting to be better and wanting to help people, then we're just flooding him with information, right? To like, hey, I want to get better, I want to get better, I want to get better. And then exponentially, he has more cases than he would ever run into as a coach. So I've seen him make a leap from already being one of the best coaches in the industry to a man who really changed the trajectory of the coaching landscape as we know it. And you have to be a really special person to do that. And I think that's Austin. I mean, he's so different in the way that he approaches everything, yet it's so simple. So it's like that's how you know somebody's really smart. When it can be
Yeah.
so simple, you're like, oh wow. I remember I was having a conversation one time with one of his clients who was a colleague, is a colleague, and he's like, I'm going through this gut protocol and my acid reflux, it got better and then all of a sudden it got worse. And I don't know why it's worse. So I asked Austin and he was like, well, when we're going through this kill off phase and you're killing off all this bad bacteria and stuff, you actually lose the ability to break down the food even more. And so the pressure you had resolve there for a little while, and then the pressure that's built up has now pushed that esophageal flap open, and it's causing you to have acid reflux. And I remember watching him repeat it to me to tell me, and his brain was oozing out of his ears because he never would have imagined that that's one of the causes as to why he was in the state that he was in. But if you sit there and think about it, it's like, well, duh, makes a lot of sense. Super simple. So, and that's Austin sort of in a nutshell. It's like one of the most intelligent people in the space for sure.
Yeah, I like how he can take complex things and break it down into simple terms. He explains it to you complex, but he also then lets you know it kind of a shorthand, so it's easier for you to take that knowledge. But it means that you're getting both sort of angles.
Hmm.
I remember years ago watching stuff about him and people trying to maybe slate him because he was the first that came out and started talking about functional health. For what I remember years and years ago, and nobody really paid it much attention. But if you fast forward to today, he's probably one of the first ones that people would turn to now with the functional health stuff. So,
Hmm.
and it's obviously it's mad for me as well when I get to talk to him. You know, obviously I talk to him frequently, and it's like you can't believe it because obviously you used to watch him. Now you're actually being you're not actually able to talk to him. You know, it's that there is
Yeah.
some difference there.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the Airbnb with him and I pick on him a little bit. I'm like, you're a little bit like a movie star, you know? Like people would be people would be jealous that I'm sharing an Airbnb with you and having this conversation. And it's just like we if you were a fly on the wall, it's just two regular dudes talking about bodybuilding, eating their meals, dealing with clients. And, you know, one of the things we talked about the most was Jesus. We were talking about the
Yeah,
Bible. And it's like
yep,
philosophy and stuff like that. And like he's such a deep person. And not everybody gets to see that because he's this educator on the front side. So yeah, I'm really blessed to have him in my life and to have him as a friend. And the experience with him prepping me, the other thing was I didn't invite him to the show. Like a lot of times as a coach, your athlete will be like, "Hey, you know, can I pay for your room? You know, come to the show." And I didn't have any expectations that he would go to Masters, Nationals, or whatever. And he was like, "Dude, I'm not missing this." He's like, "It'd be my luck that I'd miss it and you'd win your freaking pro card, and you're gonna win your pro card before I win my pro card." And I'm like, "Yeah, that would be wild because he's been bodybuilding for 20 years. So,
yeah,
but his time's coming up. We'll see. We'll see how he
yeah.
does."
I mean, he is looking pretty good now.
Man, I'll say this: 10 times better than any other time I've ever seen him.
Yeah, yeah. It'll definitely be interesting to see when he gets on stage
So
for
what
sure.
are you gonna do? Or like you're looking shredded, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I basically just dieted just because it was time to go into a dieting phase, and then it just landed that I was going on holiday for a couple of weeks, so I just kind of dieted into that. But my aim now is to come back out and reverse up and put kind of a muscle on. A bit about my kind of a background in terms of I was about 90 kilo, you know, still had abs, wee bit fluffy, but then I started having the IBD issues, and then that was ongoing for years. So I lost a chunk of weight. So even now, I'm still just hovering about the 75 kilo mark. But see, because I've been at that 90 kilo in my head, like that's a target for me now to get back up to. But I want to be in better condition. Competing for me is pretty much out the window. Years ago, I would have thought about it, but now it's probably not going to be there,
How
especially
old
with the
are you?
stoma and that now. 6, had to think about that there.
Okay.
So I don't think it's really there for me now. I just do it for the love of the bodybuilding. You know, I've been doing it
Yeah,
for years now,
sure.
and it's
Just
just,
fun.
you know,
Well, you
yeah.
look like you enjoy training a lot too. Like you're very intentional with your training. Where are you in the UK? Yeah.
And Glasgow, it's this kind of a decent gyms and that about here, and training was the thing that kind of got me into it. And the reason why I started the gym in the first place was just because my missus fell pregnant with my daughter. At that point, I was like 20 stone, 21 stone, of just pure fat.
Hmm.
As soon as I was told that, but that was it, game over. It's time to go to the
Yeah.
gym. And
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'll give you a little bit of, I guess in 2020, I was going to a church in downtown Raleigh, and the executive pastor had just been hired to sort of manage several campuses. There was like three or four campuses across the churches, and he was from Scotland, and so his name was John Kerr, and he's from where you're from, and your accent. Like if I were to close my eyes, and his accent's just slightly different than yours, but it's almost you sound like him. And even his wife Allison, there's certain words and stuff. It's just hearing you talk and listening to you tell your story and stuff. It's very nostalgic for me. I used to have breakfast with him every Wednesday, and he's kind of like a little bit of a father figure for me. So the accents welcomed thing. I might get you to read some books on tape so I can just listen to it while I'm over
just
here.
just close your eyes and listen in.
So, how long have you been coaching?
I've been coaching for about a year and a half now, so I'm kind of a newer to the side of it. And again, it was just I was sitting in the hospital, and I just decided enough was enough. So I'm not full time coaching yet, you know, full
Yeah.
transparency. I'm just kind of a part time coaching. I've got a kind of a full daytime job. Down the
Hmm.
line, maybe I'll switch over to full time coaching. But as I said, it's part time now, and it
Do you feel
was
like it's your
kind of a
passion? Is it something that you want to do?
it is more so on the kind of a functional health side, the autoimmune IBD side. So although I'm into bodybuilding, I wouldn't mind helping bodybuilders. But see, because I've never been on stage,
Be
I'm of
tough.
the mind frame. I'm in the mind frame of although I reckon my ability to take somebody to stage and know what to do, I could do it.
Hmm.
But it's not in me to do that because I've never put myself on stage.
Yeah, I
So
think that's fair.
I'm with the old school of coaching where if I've not done it myself, then I shouldn't be taking somebody to there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think so. I do a lot of functional health cases too. It's in fact, if you look at Austin's roster and the makeup of it, it's a mirror of mine. Mine's a mini version of it. You know, I have everything from endometriosis to all kinds of different things with different people, and I've been doing it. So 2013 was part time, all the way into like 2021, and well into like 2024. I was kind of juggling kind of a full time job, but I had a full time roster. So it's been it's the sole thing that I'm doing now. It's all I do now, and I've been doing it for 2-3 years, only coaching now. But if I'd give you some advice. So if you have, so I always kind of like viewed it as like a boat that I wanted to jump into, and I was on the dock, right? It's like, so I'm on this dock. I have this sales job, but I have this boat that's my coaching boat, and I want to jump into it. And I always wanted to bring it as close to the dock as I could to jump into it. Regret it. I regret not jumping sooner because fear has held me back in so many different ways that I wonder if I had made the leap and gone full time sooner, could I help more people? Because I think even when I talk to you and like your experiences with your own health journey, and I kind of made a reel about this today, you're uniquely made and like wildly talented in your own right, and you're specifically placed where you are to make an impact with the people that you're going to make an impact with. So if all your time is filled up with this sort of anxious fear of like, I don't want to leave this job because I don't know if I can make this work. Now, granted, bills are a thing, right? We all have to pay our bills, but ultimately, man, if you can get close and it feels a little uncomfortable, like do it. Because just you having the experience of having chronic illness yourself, the relatability that you can have for your particular client base, it's priceless. And I'll say this too, like even going through this prep, I mean, a 6 month long prep makes you feel like you've got chronic illness.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you're just like, I'm literally dying. And so when you're in that place and coming out the other side, I realized that I could relate to my clients who, like my sister's got Lyme disease. She's just laid up in the bed miserable. I did that. I just did that for a week, you know. And now granted it's different, but it's also like the same. You know, when you go through something that's hard, like it can be the hardest thing that you've experienced, but you can't really correlate it with somebody else's other hard experience that they've ever done. But you both can relate on the fact that this is the hardest thing that I've ever done. So if you have those experiences and you're in a place where you're in remission, or you're feeling pretty good, man, talk about a walking beacon of hope. You should, dude, like, go do the damn thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need more people like you. And you come across fearless. Like, even in just asking me to be on the podcast, I don't know you, you know. You're like, I'm just going to talk to this guy. And I think we need more fearless people in the space and with purpose, because you clearly have a purpose. You're not in it for, you know, you're not going to make millions of dollars. Maybe you will, but you're not in it to make millions of dollars. And neither am I. And that's probably why we're sitting here having this conversation. You could probably see that through some of my posts and some of the genuineness that I try to come across with. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's free advice. So you get what you pay for.
No, it's definitely I've always had this idea of matching what I get, and then once I get to the matching level, then that's when I'll probably look to make the leap.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's impact over anything. Now, at the end of the day, I've got a family to feed, so you need to earn a
100%.
living from it. But it's impact over how much somebody's worth to me. You know, I don't look at clients on value of how much they're worth to me. It's how much can I help them, and as a byproduct, I'll earn the money from them, if that makes sense.
100%. That's exactly how I feel about it too. And just a heads up, I have a blood review call in about 5 minutes, so I'll need to run. But I do enjoy talking to you. If you ever want to just have conversation on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Maybe we can have a little bit more detailed discussion on what IBD looks like and what it looks like to be a person with IBD and what your journey has been. And I think I just recently had another girl on who has chronic illness, and a lot of people have chronic illness, and it's like this silent thing. You know, they're just kind of suffering in silence. And I think the more that we can talk about it, the more we can kind of bring things to light and stuff like that, I think it would be helpful. So
Yeah, no, definitely, I'd be up for that. I hope to have you back on as well, and as what we can do, bringing you back on, as we can go through maybe why you think you had the SIBO, and then what sort of protocol that you've implemented, and
yeah,
there's other things that we can chat about, if
it's
that's something
interesting
of
too.
interest to
It's
you as well.
all that's changed over the years too. So like when I originally fixed my gut, I'll finish up with this. It was like a list of antimicrobials over the counter. And then the second time we've had to fix it was, what's the antibiotic for SIBO? It slipped my mind.
Oh, is it begins with an R?
Rifaximin.
Rifaximin.
So,
That's it.
so the second time we fixed it, I did a course of rifaximin and a combination of supplementation, and then we fixed it like 3 times. And then the third time, it was a whole lot less antimicrobials and more of kind of biofilm disruptors and
Disruptors.
kind of letting things smooth themselves out a little bit more, kind of managing stress and food. And so I've done a myriad of different protocols, but I'd love to dive in on that too.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'd love to have you back on, and we can go into that. But I'll let you go for your call. But before you go, do you want to put your plug out there where people can find you, or that, if they're interested
Yeah,
in obviously having a
absolutely.
chat with you on coaching and stuff?
Absolutely. My website is trueoptimalperformance.com. I actually offer one-on-one coaching and mentorship for coaches if they're interested in that. I also am on Instagram at Kenneth_Almond_ at yeah, that's Instagram, and then Kenneth Almond on Facebook. And hit me a follow. I'll chat with you if you need anything, and just keep in touch with me, Sean. Okay.
Will do, mate. Thanks very much for coming on the podcast, mate. Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.